politics. I do see your anxiety showing, right? Don't worry, I get anxious too when politics is mentioned, whether it's at family lunches, friend circles, medias. People usually tend to think about politics exclusively in terms of like politics partisans or elections, which is why you would try to disengage by saying, nah, I'm not concerned with politics. Being political is perceived as something negative, yet it is an inescapable aspect of our lives, and literature itself can be political. Hi, my name is Tina. I love to talk about books, and I'm super excited about the video of today. Why do you need to make everything political? Well, I'm sorry if I'm breaking it to you, but if you're saying that, it's probably because you're already living a privileged life, and you're living it forgetting that other people fought for you in order to be able to live this life, unless you're a white cis male, I guess. Writer Oliver Senior said something that resonated so much with me in an article for The Guardian. She says that we are all entangled in politics because we're citizens of somewhere. We cannot escape being shaped by political decisions, big or small. So instead of asking the question, should literature be political? She said that she should rephrase it as a statement. Literature is political because we, the creators of literature, are political animals. It is part of accepting our responsibility of being human, of being citizen of the world. My heart. I'm saying this totally conscious that by definition and my acts, I am a privileged person. But by making this video, I'm trying to raise your awareness, if it's not already the case, and maybe convince you to have a critical mind while reading, because reading is political. But I assure you, it's not that difficult to keep politics in the books, but rather problematic to keep the politics out of the books. Why? I will prove it to you with 2 points. As I was taught at university, they didn't like the free pounds. Yes, I was traumatized. Let's not talk about this. So in the first point, we'll see how by nature reading and books are political. And then in the second point, why is it essential to have a critical mind while reading books. Keep in mind that all these ideas do not come from my genius brain. I've read a bunch of articles and books, and I'll try to condense them and transmit/popularize them to you. So I'll link down below the articles I'm talking about. So what about the inherent political aspect of books? What is politics? It is everything related to the action of a government. So why should we care about the political conduct of our governments, and how is it related to books? Let me explain. The ability to read books is related to our ability to get educated, right? And who grants us this right? Our parents? Not only. Also the governments. So here's a reminder of why education is important. Indeed, education is a right that should not be taken for granted. Reading and being able to write was not always an inherent right, which means a fundamental right belonging to every human being, making it universal, thus applicable to everyone on the planet, without any distinctions. For example, it was not always common for women to get an education unless they were from a higher rank in society. But even before that, it was a common idea that women did not belong to the academic field. In 1973, Harvard University medical professor Edward H. Clark claimed that educated women struggled with infertility due to conflict between the brain and the womb. He argued that women shouldn't be admitted to university because of the danger that an overactive brain would divert blood away from her reproductive regions, leading to hysteria. Yes, they loved to use that word for women. And that's a medical school professor. How frightening. But our dear Edward was far from being the only one to think that way. Charles Dickens, you thought, yes, I see you, but we'll come back to you later. Decades and centuries of these ideas precedes them. It took until the turn of the 20th century for women to access higher learning, which is funny because today the relation to books have been completely reversed, associated more with feminine audience. Women reading the most in Europe, for example. Concerning minorities discriminated against their skin color. Yes, you might see me coming, right? Yes, let's talk about how for approximately 400 years African Americans were enslaved until near the end of the 19th century, with approximately 100 million of victims. The majority didn't get any education, Thus couldn't read or write until abolition laws started to get promulgated. There were a few exceptions, of course, but even after that, writing a book and being published is not an easy ride. I see you coming. You're like, Tina, that was a long time ago. Why should we care? Ugh. Well, first, it was not so long time ago. The right to an education is stated in the Article 26 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights since 1948. Pretty late, right? Moreover, this is a non-legally binding declaration, which means that at the end, the government gets to do whatever it wants. That's why there is still disparity of the application of this declaration. Hence, the fact that in Yemen, Afghanistan, and sub-Saharan countries are still discriminating women, forbidding them to access education. If we are denied this access, it only allows others to have power upon us. That's why it's a common say that education is a weapon. Know that we saw that the fact of reading is in itself political. Let me explain how the books in themselves are political. Reading and education are indeed so powerful that many attempts through time have been made to censor or ban books. There are different definitions of what banning a book means, but according to a majority, it is restricting and prohibiting the reading of certain type of books by the general public. And this can be done by the removal from publicly locations such as libraries, or by the destruction, including burning books, or by making their creation or distribution a punishable act. Books are typically banned by governments, but it can also be done by small business groups or religious authorities, and even in more rare cases, private powerful individuals. To buy a book is almost always a controversial thing to do in a liberal democracy, since its citizens considers that the freedom of speech is a component of a democratic society. Black authors as James Baldwin, who was also queer, and Toni Morrison, who also faced gender discrimination in the literary world, are commonly banned authors. In the United States, public and school libraries are legally allowed to prevent children to read some books because it is a commonly agreed idea that some books should not be available to children. But it is even more relevant nowadays, as this commonly accepted form of censorship became a political issue starting in 2021, when national groups of social conservatives and conservative politicians started to gather forces to remove a multitude of children's and YA books from library shelves. And what a surprise, primarily those written from the perspectives of people of color or LGBTQI+ people. In 2022, Republican lawmakers in some states began passing or attempting to pass sweeping laws to ban children's books in public and school libraries that did not accord with their views on racial and sexual matters. Indeed, gender books are the books that are the most attempted to be banned from the public libraries and in schools. From 2020, Gender, Queer, and All Boys Aren't Blue are the most banned books. Moreover, even if more books are published from queer authors, they still face discrimination in the literary world by being paid lower or by having to make corrections in order to align with conservative audiences, etc., etc. So now that we see that people are sometimes so powerful that the government tried to ban them, making them political, and thus challenging our right to expression, making it also political. We'll see how the processes of the creation of the book in itself is also political. The processes of creation of a book is influenced by politics. A book cannot be removed from the author, just as the politics cannot be removed from our everyday life. A lot of the controversy about why books should be political comes from books that have a lighter purpose. Often, these are the types of books whose main purpose is to divert, to help us escape our crappy lives, so the political aspect might not be so apparent. Romance novels are a great example for this because readers go into these books to escape the world, and typically for some light-hearted content. So of course, when I'm reading a Abby Jimenez, Emily Henry book, I just want to put my brain aside and not think about politics. I just want to put my brain aside and be entertained. Oh, sorry also for the change of light, but it started to rain a lot suddenly, so it's very dark right now. Still, authors write about what they know, putting little part of themselves and their beliefs in their creation. Books reflect reality, good or bad, and expose the readers to a vast range of human experiences and worldviews. Elie Hazelwood books are a good example for that because even though they talk about love and sometimes light-hearted subjects, They also talked about affordable living, sexual assault, academic politics, and gender roles in science. Hazelwood incorporated these elements for a reason, not only to address them because of their importance in the society, but also because elements like this give stories depth and make for relatable content that the readers can connect with. Without politics, the books that we consume would lose their depth that make readers love a story, that makes readers identify to the characters too. So indeed, while writing a book, its author is always influenced by their environment. And it is crucial to remember that no society can be built without politics. World building is critical for a book to be good. And part of this is establishing societies and how they work, which affect the main characters and their abilities in the world. So yes, the literary world is political. Creating a book is influenced by politics. Reading is political. Politics are part of the books. That's a fact. So what? What do I do with that? And why is it a problem to keep politics out of the books? Well, I got you. It's the subject of part 2. Well, in all transparency, we're the day after because another dormitory roommate came in, so I was a little bit intimidated to film with her aside of me. That's the joy of filming while traveling. Sorry about that. And the change of frame. I tried to look the same, but I know it's slightly different. So let's continue, shall we? So the importance of having a critical mind. Why is that? And I want to talk about the subject of we do not separate the art of the artist. Yes, let's talk about this sensitive subject, please. Can we separate the art from the artist? I would tend to say no. Absolutely no. But it's a little bit more complicated than that, and it needs to have some nuances. To my point of view, when not held accountable for their actions, authors continue to profit from their harmful remarks. What's coming may hurt. Take a deep breath. We're gonna do this together. I have to mention J.K. Rowling. I know, I am as heartbroken as you are, probably. But she is the subject of a cancel movement right now because of her transphobic, homophobic and racist remarks. When you put money in the pocket of J.K. Rowling by buying Harry Potter merch, by buying her books, the movies, by going to the studios in London, she may use this money freely afterwards. For example, funding transphobic institutions. I say it needs nuances because even if not all the apples are rotted, the actors, the director, the filmmakers, all the crews that worked on the Harry Potter movies did a brilliant job, still putting money in her pocket. So no, I won't be buying any more editions of Harry Potter books for upcoming anniversaries, for example, or movies or merch. Will I still be doing Harry Potter marathons in full? Yes. Will I promote it on social medias? No. And that's the nuance, I think. If you want to support the other actors, you can buy anything related to the other works to support them. Every case is different and should be handled differently, and that's why the video of World really inspired me for this video, and I really recommend you to watch her videos because she's hilarious too. She says that, for example, when a problematic actor or voice actor is put aside, is removed from a TV show, then everything is not to be thrown away. What happens when the artist is dead, you'd say? While doing this video, I made some research and I've learned that Charles Dickens, yes, here you are, who created one of the most famous spinster unhinged characters with Miss Havisham, he even tried to put his wife on an asylum because he wanted to marry a younger actress. Catherine Dickens was indeed the mother of his 10 children and a writer in her own right. And luckily, the doctor that was supposed to diagnose her refused to diagnose her with a mental disorder. Who's the crazy one now, huh? So yes, they're dead. I won't be putting money in their pocket, but would I use my time, my precious time, to read his works? No. Nowhere. I want to be as far away as I can from his works. Because, as we've seen previously, the work of an artist is entangled with their personalities. So no, I'm not interested anymore in reading his books, even though I planned on it. But I removed all of them from my TBR. And what a bless. But again, that's my point of view. You do you. Some people are curious to read Mein Kampf, So what you have to keep in mind is that every situation is different. Every situation needs to be handled differently. And you should do what your moral compass dictates to you. And how you can do that? By keeping keeping your critical mind, with having political opinions. If you're not supporting queer rights, then why would you cancel J.K. Rowling's? Because that's all it is at the end. It's your own conscience. In what other situation is it necessary to keep a critical mind? With problematic books, of course. If we saw that reading can have a positive effect by educating yourself, there are books that do more harm than good. Unfortunately, sometimes some readers can be exposed to very problematic and harmful and offensive writing. When books are fictional and imaginative for some, it can be triggering for others when mishandled, or glorifying topics such as homophobia, sexual assault, racism, and more. Indeed, exposing authors who are responsible of romanticizing and erasing the violent nature of sexual assault is important. And to do so, you have to keep somewhere your critical mind. So yes to putting aside your brain while reading a romance book because you want to be entertained, but no to erasing completely your critical mind. You need to keep it in a corner somewhere, you know. For survivors of traumatizing events, reading those books are never just fictional, because reading them can easily trigger traumatic events, past or ongoing trauma. In addition to that, it can teach younger readers that certain types of violence are okay and prevent them from speaking up if they become a victim. Just as young teenagers and children starting watching porn and having all these expectations and start to grab hair and spank people because it's the norm without even asking for consent. It's what they're used to, but it's fictional, right? It's not harmful, right? Thus, these types of books, such as Colleen Hoover's book, are problematic. Hence, once more, the importance of having your critical mind somewhere in your brain. Your smut might seem harmless, but it is not, especially when it ends up in YA shelves. So careful, you might be thinking, then why don't we ban those books? Well, banning a book is not a solution. The right to expression should never be limited or challenged. However, the source of the problem comes from the writers, the publishers. They should be aware that putting those books in the wrong hands is harmful. They should make sure to have trigger warnings at the very least in order to prevent the wrong audience to read them. So instead of normalizing harmful books and putting money in the wrong pockets, read those books. I have some recommendations. Non-fiction and fictional, of course, because I know you want to have your fun, even though I'm not saying you can't have fun while reading non-fiction books. So here are some actual good, non-problematic, but with a slightly political aspect books that I recommend. First, let's talk about the non-fiction, because I truly believe that find my purpose of reading because I'm learning things and in a fun way. They are really easy to read. One of my all-time favorites, Breading Sweetgrass by Rory Gilmore, a book about how we lost our connection with nature and how we can claim it back. Everything is Tuberculosis, a book that is highlighting the social inequalities by showing us how we are treated illegally with a deadly disease, tuberculosis. Finding Me by Viola Davis, a heartbreaking yet beautiful memoir about her journey of how she became an actress. Word Slut, Feminism in Language. Love that. Permanent Record, a book that made me cry, about Edward Snowden retracing the steps that led him to reveal one of the most scandalous affair about mass surveillance by the United States. The poetry collection Forest of Noise about the war in Palestine. And in fiction, because I know you want to have your fun. In the fantasy genre, you have all the books by Robin Hobb, Lord of the Rings trilogy, the Game of Thrones series, you have Priory of the Orange Tree, the sequel and the prequel, you have She Who Became the Sun and He Who Drowned the World, Lonely Castle in the Mirror. Love this one. For dystopian books with a dash of science fiction, you have of course 1984, Fahrenheit 451, Dune, The Handmaid's Tale that I haven't read yet but I need to, Brave New World, and The Hunger Games, of course. For the dark academia, you have Dead Poet Society, one of my favorite of all time too, and Babel. Loved this one too. For the classics, you have Little Woman that I absolutely loved. Every book that I'm mentioning right now, I love them, so I will just stop saying that. I have also The Little Prince. For historical fiction, you have any modern comedy book, Halle Dosini book, The Silence of the Girls, Anatomy and Immortality. And for the mangas, I have to talk about mangas too. You have Naruto, One Piece, Kingdom, and Yona of the Dawn. But if you don't want to start a long series, you also have The Apothecary Diaries, Full Metal Alchemist, 20th Century Boys, and Death Note. And all of these books also have romance aspects to them, so you can find your joy, I think. We are nearing the end of this video, so what should you keep in mind? What's the conclusion of all of this? Do I think that it is dangerous that we are losing our ability to be critical with books and erase politics from reading because we just want to have our fun? Yes. That you should do your research about an author before buying his books? Yes. It's not a crime if you read a book and that you learn that this author is problematic. It's okay. Don't feel frustrated. It should become one of our responsibility to check this. So even if I know that the main purpose of reading a book is to be entertained, it resonates so much with a quote that I loved from Permanent Record, which is, ultimately, saying that you don't care about privacy because you have nothing to hide is no different from saying you don't care about freedom of speech because you have nothing to say. I love this. So, to make a parallel out of it, saying that you don't care about the political aspect of books because you just want to have your fun is no different from saying that you don't care about politics because it doesn't concern you. I truly believe that it is primordial to keep our critical mind, as politics is inherent to our lives. You would think that today you're protected, right? Oh yes, we have constitutions, we have human rights, but I beg you to not forget that any higher laws that exist can be challenged. Constitutions can be changed. Human rights can be baffled. And whatever political side you're in, you're not safe. It has always been a reality, and is still today, that our rights are not to be granted, and that it is our responsibility to stay informed and educated to defend those rights. So that's it. I won't bother you anymore. Thank you, punks, so much for clicking. Thank you for watching till the end. I hope you enjoyed this video. I loved doing the research for it and I loved doing it, so I hope you enjoyed it too. And as always, most importantly, thank you for being nice. Please let it stay that way. And with that, I have to say bye.